Okay. Okay, so we have started recording and let's let another person in. Okay. So yeah. So we have like a really great group of partners and the this program started it came out of the Chicago Bird Alliance Advocacy Committee, and Andy Burnham is now the chair of that advocacy committee, and he did a ton of work to put this together. So I think we should all really thank Andy because this is his baby. Oh, there he is. Okay, he's waving. Great. Good. Yeah. Uh, yeah. And we have a lot of other people involved, not only the people who you'll meet in this program, but also Miriam Raynaud is going to lead the training, and Elena Gonzalez is going to Elena Gonzalez White is going to do the training. So she works with Dr. Mayer, and we've got just a bunch of other. Maggie Walsh has been very involved as well from the 43rd Ward. So we're really just so lucky to have really all the players together. And we have high hopes for this pilot. As of course I think you all know, the rats eat the rodenticide, and then the owls and the hawks and other raptors eat the rats. And there have been just a really big number of um, raptors that have been taken in by Willowbrook Wildlife Center and tested, and that rodenticide has been found to be their cause of death. So, and I think a big part of the reason is that they're making new, stronger rodenticides. They're called second generation rodenticides, and this is really causing a lot of problems for birds. So we want to do everything we can to try to reduce the problems for birds. And we recognize that this is not going to be the whole answer, but we are very excited to see the results of this study. But other things that you can do, believe it or not, dog poop is like really, the rats love dog poop. So please pick up after your dog. Don't let your bird seed go on the ground. Uh, and also, just like don't let rats in your house fill up any kind of chinks that you see. So those are things that you can do to solve the rat problem. Okay. So, let's see, who do we have here today? So we've got, I'm a board member of the Chicago Bird Alliance, and I was the president from 2019 until this year. Uh, Sunshine DeVries is now the president, and I've been active in conservation and community science since the late 90s. Gloria Pittman is the Deputy Commissioner of Rodent Control at the City of Chicago's Department of Streets and Sand. She's a Chicago native, hailing from the South Side, a CPS graduate, and a former adjunct faculty member at Olivet Nazarene University. She leads the city's rodent control and rat abatement initiative, which involves a combination of public education, infrastructure improvement, sanitation enforcement, and innovative pest control strategies. And then Alderman Knudsen is the 43rd Ward Alderman, which covers Lincoln Park, Old Town Triangle, and part of the Gold Coast. He's an advocate for safe streets, strong schools, and vibrant communities, and believes strongly in private-public partnership. He believes that partnership is on clear display tonight through this team leading this exciting project. Then we've got Dr. Maureen Murray, who is the Assistant Director of One Health at Lincoln Park Zoo's Urban Wildlife Institute. Her research focuses on the health of wildlife in cities and the public health risks and benefits of human-wildlife interactions. And she started the Chicago Rat Project in 2018 to better understand how we can reduce health risks from rats in Chicago. And then Dr. Mayer is co-founder of Wisdom Good Works in Flagstaff, Arizona, a 501c3 public charity. Dr. Mayer has over 20 years' experience developing wildlife contraceptives and is the co-inventor of the technology that safely contracepts rodents with a plant-based natural feeds supplement. And, just in case it isn't clear, Dr. Murray is going to be doing the scientific study on this, and Dr. Mayer and Wisdom Goodworks are going to be providing the actual contraceptive. So we've got a really a dream team here, and um, I think without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Gloria Pittman.
Hi, and good evening, everyone. As you stated, I am Gloria Pittman. I'm the Deputy Commissioner with the City of Chicago Department of Streets and Sanitation, particularly responsible for our rodent control program, our rodent control initiatives. So we are happy. You know, uh, we have a great team that we're working with, the Chicago Bird Alliance, the Lincoln Park Zoo scientists, DePaul University as well. We're working with them to find out if this contraceptive is feasible for urban areas. We are happy to partner. One of our initiatives, and every year city, the infrastructure departments have different initiatives, and this is one of ours this year, to look at different ways that we can control the rodent population. We are hopeful for the results, but we know that with the help of the scientists, we will research, we will discover, we will find out what actually works in an urban setting. We are part of a team that's going to be monitoring the results. You'll hear more about the areas that we're going to be testing in, and we chose those areas. I'll go into that because of the high density of residents. It's a combination of businesses, combination of residents, single family homes, a couple multi-unit buildings. So we have a good mix of what is representative of the city of Chicago. Good thing that I noted once we sent out our press releases and said that, hey, City of Chicago is on board with this, and we're going to see if this is something that we can, add to our arsenal, because we are very, very committed to controlling the rodent population as best we can. And if we can't, to have innovative strategies and instances is where we can make a difference. We're not opposed to trying different things. So this is the first venture for me. I came along in October, November, and funny, the commissioner says, "Hey, Gloria, this is what we're gonna do. Let's run with it. Let's help our friends out in Lincoln Park." We're our city partner, Lincoln Park Zoo, along with the other scientists. We're going to really get into this and find out if it's going to be good for our city. And if it is, then we'll explore ways to develop it more and to have it into more areas. And I will tell you guys that we have had a lot of questions. Uh, we don't know what's going to happen at the end, but we've had a lot of questions, and hopefully we'll get the answers through this study, uh, at the end. But overall, this is a show of good governance, good effective governance. This is what and our alderman will talk about this later. This is what good governance is supposed to do. Uh, it's going to have a great effect on the mental health and wellness of our residents, the quality of life of our residents. And we see this as a step towards greater things in the future. So the Department of Streets and Sanitation is very happy to be on the team, this great team of scientists and community partners, and especially me, who comes from a background of community partnerships. And so this is second nature for me, and I look forward to the results. And thank you, Chicago Bird Alliance, for involving me and for involving the department, because this is one of the things that we should do. We're supposed to do. Check out for new innovative strategies to be at the forefront, and the city of Chicago will be at the forefront if we continue things like this. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's great to be in partnership with you. So I think the feeling is mutual. I forgot to mention, but if you have questions, just put them in the chat, and we're gonna take all the questions at the end. Okay, and now I'll hand it to Alderman Timmy Knutson.
Thank you. Again, Timmy Knutson here, Alderman for the 43rd Ward. So Lincoln Park, Old Town Triangle, Gold Coast. I want to thank everyone for joining this call. We've had a lot of interest to our office, as of no surprise, as we've been trying to write about the need for this program and how it's going to be run, and the importance of it being run with experts, the experts that are on this call. So it's a really, really important fact of this pilot that it's the Chicago Bird Alliance, Lincoln Park Zoo, Urban Wildlife Institute, Dr. Loretta Mayer, and the Wisdom Good Works team. Because from the 43rd Ward office, we want a great set of data at the end of this, in the hopes that it's a positive set of data that shows a good result, so that then we as government can go pitch it citywide. I want to give just a little rundown of requests in the 43rd Ward, and then I think, looking down the line, how we can pitch this. But we have a very substantial history of requests in the ward related to rodent and rodent abatement. It might be now our most frequent request that we get to our office. There's neighbors with rodent heavy alleys and sidewalks that continue to request more abatement and do not see the impact they want to see through the rodenticide approach. It does impact, as has been noted, quality of life. A lot of kids afraid of rats. There's a local kid who, you get scratched by a rat and you have to go get a shot for rat scratch fever. We've had a few incidents of that. And there's a real appetite in the community for reducing this population in a humane way. And the humane aspect of this is key. And that's where I think the Chicago Bird Alliance is the ideal partner on this. I've learned a lot from the Bird Alliance during this process about how we should be abating in a more humane way. Not just more humane for children, but as noted on this call, significantly more humane for other wildlife species. Such as the horned owls that we lost, that were, the loss was tracked to rodenticide coming from our community. So with this combination of, an approach that's not really working, an approach that might not even be humane, I think it's important that we as government try to advocate for innovation. And this is a product that's been used and tested in pilots in Boston and New York. Wisdom Good Works team is spreading the good word throughout the country. And I think the 43rd Ward is an ideal place for us to pilot this in the city of Chicago. Number one, our office likes experimenting with things. We push the limit on innovation in a few different ways. Number two, we're a lakefront dense community with a lot of green space. So we have natural wildlife that's able to thrive and often ventures into the communities. A lot of our alleys are not only residential, but it's residential and business. And we see a high number of rodents and rats on alleys that have businesses. We hold our businesses to a high standard in, their dumpsters, making sure they're secure. However, it still really increases in those areas. So as we started looking at locations, and this team, again, in a really thoughtful approach, we thought of a few locations, checked them out, decided maybe this isn't what we're looking for. So we switched and we landed on a few really good experiment sites, through the help of Department of Streets and Sands and telling us, hey, we're getting a lot of requests here. And the help of the other experts saying, hey, this is a good location for us to be able to put our canisters and our cameras. And I think that in the Ranch Triangle area, I won't give specific, but near Armitage, there's some really good locations where we'll be able to collect the data in a positive way. Just to close this out, in the thought that, again, my hope here, and we're going to be watching closely with Streets and Sands, is that we get good data from this that shows a significant decrease in over the period, not immediately, doesn't happen immediately, but over the period of the pilot in the rodent population. What I want to then do with that is champion that to my city council colleagues who are already asking about this program. There are a few rat contraceptive pilot programs in the city. However, they are not as formally partnered as this pilot program is with the Department of Streets and Sands. That's very important to be partnered with the Department of Streets and Sands, because any citywide approach will be implemented by the Department of Streets and Sands. So, as Deputy Commissioner Gloria Pittman said, it's a really important thing that Commissioner Stollard has his eye on this project as well, because the commissioner then in future years presents the budget of all of Streets and Sands. It's a very big budget. And in that budget, it shows what materials are used, such as a budget line for rodenticide. My goal is, when this pilot goes well, as we all think it will, to advocate for swapping out that rodenticide budget for the rat contraception. One important piece, important for government, maybe not as important for all stakeholders on this call, is the labor does not change from a Streets and Sands perspective. Should we swap out the materials in the budget? And that's an important piece for us as city leaders to always bring up, because it's important as we advocate for a budget that it's keeping hardworking jobs in the budget line. So I'm excited for this. This team, again, really creative. We want everyone on this call to go tell your friends, your neighbors about this pilot so that everyone's tuned in. This whole team here has a bit of a media strategy, because as we do this, we want everyone to know about it. So from the press release that the Chicago Bird Alliance and our office sent out, to some fun social media that we're going to be doing from our office coming up, we want people of all ages to be interested in the Wisdom Good Works use in the 43rd Ward. So I'll end it there. We're really enthusiastic about this and just grateful to everyone on the call.
Thank you, Alderman. Yeah. Okay, and now we're going to go to Dr. Maureen Murray, and she's going to tell us about the details of the data and the study.
Great, thanks, Judy. Should I pull up my slides, or do you want to put them up?
Oh, yeah, no, yep, I have to find those slides, yep.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks, Gloria, and thanks, Alderman Knudsen. Those are great introductions to talk about how collaborative this project is and how important it is for researchers to work with the people who are actually producing the product and actually using the product. It's all well and good to, do research projects, but it's especially gratifying to know that it might actually impact how rodents get managed in Chicago, and that there's actually going to be some use out of a study rather than just publishing in a journal and it sitting on a website somewhere. So that's really great from my perspective, that it will get translated into action.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. Do
here
you want
we
me to
go.
pull it up?
No, I got it. Okay. File slideshow. Start. Okay, I just have to. Okay, I'm looking at it, so that's a good sign.
And then there's like a green button at the bottom of Zoom that has an up arrow that says share.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
I
Sure,
know,
sure.
yeah, I'm sorry that you will have to watch me struggle with this.
Okay. While we're waiting, I guess I'll just talk about my role at the zoo. So I'm the assistant director of One Health at Lincoln Park Zoo's Urban Wildlife Institute. And hopefully many of you are familiar with the zoo, but not everyone is familiar that the zoo has a conservation and science department of about 40 scientists. So we're one of the largest science centers in a zoo in the world. So I'm really proud of that. And one of our science centers is focused exclusively on urban wildlife, which I'm a part of. And so I lead our One Health program that studies the health of wildlife, especially as it interfaces with public health. And right at the heart of that is rats, right? Like every time we're thinking about rats, we're thinking about public health and impacts to quality of life, which both Gloria and the alderman brought up. Okay, so could I get next slide, please? Awesome. So I started the Chicago Rat Project back in 2018 in partnership with Landmark Pest Management and the Field Museum and DePaul University. And our overall goal is to learn more about Chicago's rats to prevent health risks and improve management. We do this in two ways. We study rat populations directly, like why do some alleys have more rats than others? And we also take samples from those rats to look at what diseases they're carrying. And we also talk to people using surveys and interviews to understand what people are experiencing when it comes to rats. Okay, next slide, please. And so I'm excited about the idea of contraception for two reasons. One is that through the work that we've done to date, we know that we need to manage rats effectively because they affect our lives in multiple ways. We found that Chicago's rats, about 10% of them carry the bacteria that causes leptospirosis. And that's a potentially fatal disease for both people as well as dogs. And so we know that living around rat waste is harmful to our health. And we also know through survey work that people who see rats in their home daily are 5 times more likely to have signs of depression compared to people who see rats less frequently. And that's even after controlling for things like income and housing and gender and age and all of those things. And so we know that rats can affect our physical health, mental health, quality of life. But we also know that most cities in the world rely on rat poison to manage rats, and we know that rat poison affects more than just rats. Of course, we're all here because we care about birds, but we also have studied this in urban mammals. We tested around almost 100 raccoons, skunks, and opossums in partnership with ABC Wildlife Humane Control. And we found that 100% of them tested positive for rodenticides. And so that was surprising to us and also a real call to action that we need to protect biodiversity in cities. As part of that, we also tested 100 rats to see how often they would test positive even though they were still alive when we sampled them. And we found that nearly 3/4 of the rats that we tested had rodenticide in their system, but were still alive for us to trap and sample them. And so these are animals that are out on the landscape that could be eaten by hawks and owls and other animals. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, so that takes us to the Good Bites project. We're really excited to partner with Wisdom Good Works on this to understand whether rat activity declines over the long term on blocks where we're providing contraceptive pellets. Next slide, please. And so the design of the project is to put out feeding stations on 4 city blocks, and those feeding stations are going to be available to rats for 12 months. And the reason we're doing it for so long is that the first 3 months, it takes a while for the rats to learn to eat the pellets, to develop an appetite for it, and for that contraceptive effect to be seen in the population. And so between this August and November, we expect to see pellet consumption increase as the rats learn to eat the pellets. Then around 3 months in, we expect that to peak and then to start to see the effect of the contraception leading to fewer young rats on the landscape. And so at that point, we expect pellet consumption to start to go down as well as rat activity over the next 3 months. So that's November to February. And then for the remaining 6 months of the project, this is really crucial and what's often missing from other types of studies, like other pilots in Chicago, is that we want to see that that decrease is sustained over several months. And we don't want to just see, an increase in consumption and then a drop off. We want to make sure that any drop off is sustained over seasonal changes. Okay, next slide, please. And we're measuring rat activity in a few ways. Alderman Knudsen mentioned that about the need for really high quality data to tell whether this is working. And so we're measuring rat activity in 3 different ways to make sure that we're really robust in what we're collecting. And so the first way is to measure the amount of pellets that is consumed. And so it's sort of intuitive that, if rats are consuming more of the pellets, there's probably more rats around to eat them. However, that there are some assumptions there, right? Like we don't really know that it's not just one rat that's eating a ton of pellets. So we want to make sure to supplement that with other ways. So for instance, we are also using cameras aimed directly at the feeding station to monitor how often rats are coming in and out of the feeding station. And again, we can make the assumption that more visits to the feeder probably means there's more rats out there. But again, could just be the same rat like visiting the feeder over and over and over again. So next slide, please. The third way we're going to measure rat activity is completely independent from the feeders. And that's using camera stations that we've developed that we call rat cams. And they're a self-contained camera station that we've previously used at over 150 alleys so far. And it's basically just a bucket with an upside down camera in it. So it's aimed at the ground. And we can get an overhead view of rats that come in to get the bait. And we have a grid on there, a 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter grid. And that lets us measure how big the rats are that come in. So that lets us do 2 things. It lets us have an estimate of how many different rats are coming in on any given night. And it lets us separately tell how many adults we're seeing and how many juvenile rats we're seeing. And so we can put that information into a statistical model, and that'll give us an estimate for how many rats we're seeing on that alley relative to another alley. The other reason I'm excited to use this method, specifically in the context of contraception, is that since we're trying to reduce the number of rats being born, we should hopefully see especially a decrease in the number of juvenile rats over time. And that's really going to show us that fewer young rats are being produced over time. Next slide, please. Another aspect of this study that's really important is that we'll be putting out feeding stations on 4 city blocks. But then we're also going to be monitoring rats with those rat cams on 4 other blocks that will not have feeding stations. So in sort of the scientific world, we think of that as having a treatment area and a control area. And the reason why we're comparing these blocks is because there's been lots of research showing, even back to like the 1950s, that rats tend to just stay on one city block and rarely leave that block. So it lets us compare the number of rats per block. And by having some blocks with feeding stations and some blocks with no feeding stations, that lets us tell whether any change in rats is actually due to the feeding stations rather than other factors that could affect rats, like weather or waste management or I don't know, cats on the landscape, lots of different things that could be affecting rats in the neighborhood, but that you wouldn't expect to be different between the 2 groups of blocks except for the feeding stations. So here in these images, that bar graph there is seasonal changes in rat complaints. So we know that rat complaints tend to be lowest in the winter and really peak in August. And so we expect on the control blocks to just see that regular summer wave of rat activity. But ideally on the contraceptive blocks, we'll see a much lower peak in the summer compared to on the control blocks. And then the other picture is just to indicate that there's garbage everywhere on the landscape. But of course, trash pickups at different times, people are different at managing their garbage than other people on different blocks. And so the fact that we have this direct comparison between the blocks with the feeding stations and blocks without feeding stations will let us control for all those different factors that affect rats. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so if you want to think about this graphically, I'm a very visual person. So here's a diagram of what these blocks are going to look like. So there's 8 blocks in the study. 4 of them, or all of them, have the rat cam. So that's the little camera icon. So we're going to be monitoring rats using those camera stations on all of the blocks. But 4 of those blocks have the little fork and knife. That's the feeding station, the good bites. And each feeding station will have its own camera too. So it's going to be a lot of cameras, a lot of rat videos to go through. But you can see, at one end, we've got mainly the treatment blocks. At the other end, we've got mainly the control blocks, and then kind of a mix in the middle. And again, that's just to make sure that other things that are going on in the neighborhood aren't biasing our results one way or the other. Next slide, please. Of course, at the zoo, we're deeply committed to urban biodiversity. So we want to make sure that when we're thinking about chemical rodent control, we're not also inadvertently affecting non-target animals. Those are animals that aren't rats that we're not targeting with this product. And so we're going to try to minimize exposure to animals that aren't rats in a couple of ways. For one, we're not going to do this work on any block that's adjacent to a green space like a park or a schoolyard. And that's to minimize the chances that, squirrels get in there or voles, sparrows, other small animals. The second way is that by having cameras aimed at the feeding stations, we can tell exactly which types of animals are going in and out of the feeding stations. And so if we find that for some reason on one alley, the squirrels found it, and I don't think they should be able to get in based on the size of the opening. They were very specifically designed to be only big enough to let rats in. But say if the squirrels found it and they were really all over it, we might just subtly change the position of that feeding station to make sure that we're really targeting rats rather than other animals. Next slide, please. So to sum up, we're going to have the Good Bites feeding stations on 4 blocks in Lincoln Park for 12 continuous months. So we can see that change in rats and then also a sustained decrease. We're going to be measuring rat activity both through the consumption of pellets, but also using cameras in multiple ways. So we're going to have 3 different types of data that should hopefully show a decrease in rats over time. And the last aspect of the study is that we're going to be comparing rat activity on blocks that have the feeding stations compared to blocks with no feeding stations. So we can feel confident that any change in rats is due to the contraceptive pellets and not other things that are happening in the neighborhood. Thank you so much. Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah, before I let you all go, I just wanted to give a special shout out to Andrea Flores. She's our One Health Research Coordinator, and she's going to be leading all the field work. So really grateful for her expertise and work on this. And thanks to funding support from the Animal Welfare Institute for this work as well.
Thank you so much, Maureen. Yeah, and I also just want to thank the people in the audience that contributed, because we did raise $32,000
Amazing.
to do this study. So, if any of you were donors, our deepest thanks to you, because of course we wouldn't be able to demonstrate this pilot without you. So thank you so much.
Absolutely, yes. And it is incredible to have sort of a community supported research project. That's amazing. Thank you so much, everybody.
Okay, and then finally we're going to hear from Loretta Mayer, and again, just put your questions in the chat and we will get to them. From Wisdom Good Works. And if at the top of my screen it says Andy Burnham's screen, so thank you, Andy, for getting me out of a jam there. And and finding the presentation. So if you haven't been seeing the slides, just go to the top, the Andy Burnham screen.
Judy, I can't thank you enough. And for me, having done this all over the world and trying to find the right answers for more than 20 years, to have this dream team. I mean, and I haven't been able to even dream of a One Health expert on this team, as this is a One Health issue if there ever was one. So I just want to say that we are a nonprofit. And so as Dr. Murray has said, when you're working in something, you need to be able to make changes based upon the data that you collect. So we're not a commercial company. And we really want to take advantage of all of the expertise that's out there to harmonize our population for a real balanced world. And that's why this slide we led with. This was a photograph taken by Sheila Mosier on our team. But what I want you to really pay attention to is the animal. because if you work from the animal's position, you'll be able to find a balanced solution. This animal is not eating the flesh or the rind of that citrus. I think it's an orange, but the seed. So it's seeds and nuts where they are most attracted and where they have the highest lipid content that they need for cellular growth. And that's why when we ask these animals, what should we use as a basis for our contraceptive, it was real easy. Next slide, please. So we do know a great deal about killing rats. These are commensal animals, which means they feed at our table. They have traveled with Genghis Khan and just about every famous explorer on Earth. And if you look at this graph on the top right, you'll see it says poison, but that just represents killing. So what happens is as your population goes up, you knock the population down with a lethal means. You never get them all. Those that you don't get breed. And this will be really exciting to see Dr. Murray's data of the number of juveniles in those cow traps. But then they go back up, you hit them again with a lethal, and this continues ad infinitum. So what that means is the cost to one health, the cost in the expense of doing it just continues to rise. Now, if you look at a contraceptive strategy, and these are data from Good Bites. This is a population model generated by Dr. Steve Schuster on our team. But you see, as it goes up, it reaches this peak and it goes down. The difference is it continues to go down. And as that population goes down to a sustainable level, you also have the cost of all of your programs going down with it. Next slide. So, whoops, go back to that busy one. Back one. Nope, forward.
There
There,
it
stop.
is.
So, in population modeling, every time we've used this, it does the same. They go up to their peak and then they drop, just as you've predicted in your model for this particular project. Now, what's different in these peaks, and these come from these 11 projects that we've done around the country here, is that if you follow, say, this brown one, it goes up, but it drops faster than another. That's because that study was in an enclosed arena. It was actually a pigeon enclosure. And then that drops very rapidly because these animals reproduce. They can deliver every 28 days. So if, however, you look out here to this green one, and this is the data set I will show you in detail, that is a city where migration, it took a little longer for it to reach peak, as you can see, around 4 months, but then it's taken longer for it to drop down because you have in-migration. Brilliant of you to select those blocks not near a green park area, because that is a different combination. But what is the same? They go up, they eat it, and then their population goes down and it remains down. Next slide, please. Oh, no, there's one between. It's the 5 steps. There we are. I always say, work and reproduction is really easy. It's just not simple. No, it's simple. It's not easy. So the first box you got to tick is consumption. It must be highly attractive. And that's why we ask the animals, what would that be? Nuts, seeds, something derived from their preferred food. The second box you have to tick is it should target just the ovaries and the testis. You do not want a sick animal. The healthier these animals are, the better our raptors will be. And we're hopeful to see data that will show that the disease burden goes down. The third box you want to tick is it has to stop reproduction. It does sit in both males and females. In the females, it stops ovulation. So no eggs, no kids. It disrupts in the male their sperm formation. So they are not capable of fertilizing an egg. The fourth box is the population declines. As I showed you, it'll decline in a monthly manner. The fifth box, which is the most important box out there, is that when it reduces to a maintenance level, you must continue that low level of feeding. As one of our colleagues said to a manager of an animal facility, you know, if your teenage girl is taking birth control and she doesn't get pregnant, you wouldn't tell her to stop taking birth control, would you? And he got it right away. We never had that problem again. Next slide, please. Very quickly, this is a data portal monitor because you have to know how your population is going. Not everybody has these beautiful cameras that y'all have at Lincoln Park and a staff of people to monitor them. So this is what Elena Gonzalez-White will train all of your volunteers on. It's on their cell phone. You can see it's running. They just click these items and it takes about 30 seconds to load the data for each individual station. So we know where you were, what was the time, what was the temperature, how much feed did you put in, so we can calculate how much had been consumed. And you can add a picture if you so desire. Next slide, please. Now, Judy asked me to show something that might be relative to what you're doing there in Chicago. This is a project that Elena Gonzalez-White did. She chaired this project, maintained it, and she will be training you all. So as a nonprofit, we only go where we're called. So when they called us, what did they want us to do? Reduce neighborhood rodents without using poison. All right, we'll do that. We'll use contraception. We'll use Good Bites. Good Bites we have been working with in the field for 4 years. We have 4 years of data. We're just about ready to let it go. We'll monitor and report. We'll execute it up to peak consumption, as you saw, and then as it declines, we'll monitor. This is what this historic neighborhood in Boston looks like in this photograph. These were the feeders over 35 residential plots. Next slide, please. So this is the kind of data that you all will be getting, and you can get it on a daily basis, monthly, however you want it. But it takes the data that you collect. We filter out the initial pellet deployment, and you are going to get brand new stations, feeding stations that have never been tested to this degree. And they exclude other animals. So what we saw in Boston, it took about 4 months to reach that peak. Then this is the decline. Now this decline, all the way down here, this is 10 months. But over 16 months where we are now, it's down by 93%. Next slide, please. Learning is critical. So here's what we learned. We learned using our cameras at all of our feeding stations that only 40% of the feed consumption was due to rodents. The rest was dogs, birds, squirrels, raccoons, and false, that's a leaf blowing across in front of the camera. So at any rate, that was very well correlated with our consumption. This is what told us we had to develop the good box. The good box are the feeders you will be rolling out, and they exclude those other animals. And we've tested those under cameras, so we're so excited for you to have them. As I mentioned, that was 36 residents and the time. Let's go to the next slide. Because we like to measure impact, and all of us do in the nonprofit world. And again, we went to Boston because we were asked, because of Owen the Owl, who used to frequent Farnwell Hall. He died from rodenticide poisoning. So we saw that population decline 56 to 70%, but totally as it went down over those 16 months. Now, I want to put cost of product in here because this is something that Gloria brought up in her early comments, and every city it has got to be cognizant of this. And so we, in our maintenance here in Boston, in Jamaica Plain, are shipping 50 pounds a month. That costs us $5.44 a pound. So when you're at maintenance for those 2 blocks and those 33, 36 residents, that's less than $300 a month. That's less than most rodent management calls. But the important thing is it continues to go down. This price right here, $5.44, that's less than poison, the cost of poison. And that is 1/3 the cost of any other contraceptive on the market. We have always focused on costs because we've worked from the ground up. So then we wanted to thank some of our donors. There was a major donor in Boston who just wrote the check, one person, for 1 year's supply of work here in Boston. But Open Philanthropy was our leading donor who started this innovation technology. So the other thing is that in the data, and this is why you want to do it over 12 months, you want to capture that point where it's sustainable. Next slide, please. None of us do it alone. And I want to thank our scientists and the incredible people who work hard here. And everybody just was so thrilled to be on Saturday Night Live. Yes, of course. But the next slide says why we're in this. And that is for this impact. And we want to focus on wildlife welfare, food security, not only for the animals, but for humans. We want safer food supplies. We want no poison contamination. We want disease management, and we want a reduction in infrastructure damage. And with that, I am so excited to be on your team, and I thank you and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Mayer. I just want to point out a number of people who are in the audience. We've got a Miriam Reynaud, who has been just done a million things to get this project off the ground, but officially she's the head of the communications and outreach task force for this rodenticide project. So thank you, Miriam. And Elena Gonzalez White, who you just saw Dr. Mayer talking about. She's a part of the team that's coming from, I think, Boston. And we really appreciate her. She's going to be coming out and doing the training. And then also Paula Shamil, I hope I'm pronouncing your last name right, but she's also a critical team member, also lives in Lincoln Park and was very attached to the owls and took a lot of great pictures. You can see one in her uh, in in her little square there. So I want to thank all of you. And then, there are many other people who are really active, but I just wanted to call out those few. And and then, and also, of course, Matt Igleski, who is just back from Colombia and who is our executive director and who has done a ton of work on this project. And also Taylor is our office manager, and and she's here today too. So we've got the whole team here, really. Okay, so let's go to the questions. Could Deputy Commissioner Gloria Pittman explain what would be next steps if the study proves that Good Bites work to move to citywide?
Hi, thank you for your question. I'm not sure who asked it. So if the program seems to work, uh, we would then do an additional study to find out if it works in an entire ward. That is our hope. We are concentrating on a few blocks at this time, but if it works, we're committed to adding additional areas. That would include different demographics. Now we add something else to it, different demographics, to see if it is feasible in those areas. So we don't think this is a one-time and stop, but if it is successful, we're committed to looking at other communities of the 77 communities in Chicago to research it there as well.
And let me say that we picked Lincoln Park because the owls died in Lincoln Park, and so it was, easy to. It was just an easy pick, but we also, agree with Deputy Commissioner Pittman. Okay, from Greg Spire, that was from Miriam Reno. From Greg Spirius, Dr. Murray, could you add a second treatment for improved garbage bins, waste management? Perhaps you could get even better control effects.
Yeah, thanks for your question. That's a really great point, especially because the rats will probably be more likely to eat the good bites if they have fewer alternative food sources. So I think there's like a few ways to approach that, right? Like if we're working in these alleys and a bunch of them have holes or they're like damaged cans, we can certainly let um, Gloria and her team know that we need replacement cans, and I'm sure we can work together for that. I think it gets a little bit more complicated when we talk about aspects of waste management that rely on the behavior of residents. For instance, like closing your garbage can or making sure that it's overflowing. That is a lot more work than you might think, trying to get people to change their behavior. So I think at this stage, we're going to like add the feeding stations, see what that does. As I said, maybe we can replace some cans if they need to. I think a second step would be to see like when we have community buy-in, can we get people to also reduce the availability of like overspilled garbage and see if that does it even better. But like I said, that would take probably like a year to get like buy-in from people to actually change what they're doing. So incremental change, but it's a good idea.
Okay,
So
here's a question. Oh, go
I
ahead.
want to add to that about the cans, because that is one aspect that we look at. Going in at the beginning, any cans that do have holes in them, making them accessible to the rodents, we're going to replace them on the front end.
Great.
And so our hope is that the residents contain their garbage in the most proper way that they can. But we're going to replace and give them all new cans at the beginning of the project.
Excellent. Great.
Okay, from Brian Gill, if other animals do get into the pellets, or when other animals eat the rats that have eaten the pellets, such as coyotes or birds, are those animals affected the same as the rats?
That is a question that is probably uppermost in most people's mind. And first, to answer your question, the compound, the active ingredient, is metabolized in the rodent within less than 14 minutes. So it does not persist like eschars. The other thing is, if another animal can get to the pellets, this is formulated for an animal the size of a rat or a mouse. So it would need to eat inordinate quantities of this. And then, even if it could eat enough to contracept it, you have to realize this is contraception It is not sterilization. It is reversible. So we have in all of our studies not seen any adverse effects in birds, dogs, squirrels. We have not studied raccoons one-on-one. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Okay, from Audrey Vicks, will the media and members of the public be able to see any and all of the results of the study? And will there be updates provided along the way? I mean, I think I think it's great that you're expressing a need for that, and that makes it more likely that we'll do it. You know, we've just getting this off the ground has been a lot for us. So we will be thinking about how often the media, how often to involve the media. And I'm sure that we'll put out some interim press releases. Yeah,
Sorry,
also,
Judy, can I
Audrey,
add to that?
yeah, go ahead.
Um, I think it's important to keep in mind, like, both what myself and Dr. Mayer pointed out about sort of like it takes a few months for it to really kick in. So I think firstly, we need to like temper expectations that it's not going to be overnight. And secondly, providing an update like 3 months in might might not look exactly what we want it to look like. So we just have to be very conscious of like our expectations with respect to when we talk about results, and so nobody's sort of disappointed when they don't need to be. Just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, also Audrey, and anyone else that's in the media here, we are working on having some press attend the training. So if you want to get in on that, contact me. Okay, James R. I'd be happy to read this comment. This project is amazing. Thank you all so much. How can we help? Are there volunteer opportunities? How can we all help raise awareness for this important work? Again, thank you. So, yeah, thank you so much, James. We agree. And the volunteer opportunities, I think that most of them are filled, but basically the volunteers at this point are going to be walking the alleys and putting the pellets out. But you can send a note to the CBA at chicagobirdalliance.org, and let us know that you want to volunteer. And then, raising awareness. I mean, I think sharing on social media is really a great way to raise awareness. We have produced a couple of you know of things that you can share on social media. So, okay, Krakowski says, what does success look like in Chicago specifically? What does perfection look like? 50% reduction, 80% reduction, 100% reduction over what time period? So that would be, I think, Maureen or Loretta.
I'll give a short factoid here, and then Maureen can tailor in because Chicago. What we have experienced in our projects is when the rat population drops below 50%, they become less visible, especially during the day. So folks have a tendency to say, "Oh, it's worked, it's great, we're done." And that's the only thing that I know for a fact. So I would tag that over to you.
Sure. Yeah, I would second that a lot of work supports, as rat populations get higher and higher and they're really competing for food, that's when you start to see rats out during the day being more visible. I don't think 100% reduction is necessarily the goal here, partly because that would be really hard. That would be maybe impossible. I don't want to say it's impossible, but it might be impossible. But I would say certainly like Loretta said, like a 50% reduction or more, such that people are seeing them less, they are having less damage, causing less damage to property. You're not seeing a lot of rat droppings around your car, that kind of thing. That would be a great outcome. Even if we don't hit 100%, if we can hit 80, if we can hit 75, such that people's sort of visible issues go way down, then that's great.
Yeah, and Deputy Commissioner Pittman, do you have any thoughts about that? What would convince you that this is working?
Well, I would look at like both doctors said. If we're up to 50% reduction, that means that at some point it's definitely working, and so that would prompt us to look more into it, and also to pilot this same initiative in other areas. So if we can get to 50%, that would be a great study.
And we just have two more questions, so I'm hoping you can hang in for another 2-3 minutes. This is Krakowski again. For a future full-scale rollout, would this program need to be augmented with private pest control using this method, just like many of us do today with traditional control methods?
I'd be happy to give you my opinion. And that is, we have experienced that even though this is a 25B exemption from any EPA registration requirement, because it is not abated as a feed. So therefore, it could be a DIY. You can do it yourself. And we do that with a lot of animal rescues. Most people want a professional pest manager who will come regularly and do this. And we have anticipated we might be able to get that started. And my team right now is working on a certification and training program for pest managers to be able to come and put this out for people. But from our perspective, we're not ready yet. But I don't have any other comments about the pest management industry other than we sure are hopeful they realize this is a wonderful value proposition and they pick it up for a much better planet.
Okay, and Nara Schoenberg, who from the Chicago Tribune, wants to know from Dr. Mayer, given the results in Boston, can we expect a 60 to 70% reduction in rats in the Chicago study?
Well, if I knew that, I'd be in Las Vegas making my fortunes. Actually, our experience tells us that in the type of setting that you've designed this for, a 50% reduction would be an expected reduction. We don't know what your in-migration is because we don't know how many, how much food is delivered to the businesses, restaurants, etc. So without going into depth, I really couldn't speculate more than that. In our experience, if I were a betting woman, I would probably bet somewhere around the 60 to 65% reduction level. But that's just based on a drawing that I've seen. And you have the experience, Maureen.
Uh, okay, we have some more questions that have come in after 7 o'clock. But I want to like officially end the program. But if people want to stick around, and if there's hopefully our presenters can stick around for another 5 minutes to answer those questions. But I want to just officially end the program. I want to really thank everyone for coming. And I want to thank all of our presenters, particularly, I think, that you can see that we have a really great team assembled. Yeah, and, you can read, Timmy Knudsen had to leave, but he has a message for people that you can read. And yeah, so again,
And
thank you. And
I'm gonna say, I do have to jump off. However, I am open to answering any questions. If you could share my email address with the group, with the people who have logged on, I'm happy to answer any questions or concerns that anyone has. Um, and we're looking forward to this. City of Chicago is moving in a lot of new directions.
We're so glad that you're on the team.
Yeah, thanks so
Okay,
much.
yeah, I'll put your email up while the next person is answering. And thank you so much for being with us. Okay, one from Rachel Miller. Dr. Murray, you mentioned there will be lots of videos from the camera traps to go through. Will there be any professional opportunities to support coding or ethogramming these videos?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've had lots of interns go through videos in the past, and so I'll put my email in the chat, and if anyone's interested in helping us go through a mountain of videos of rats, feel free to send me an email, and I would be happy to talk to you. It is surprisingly fascinating to watch them do their thing, especially because sometimes you get multiple rats and they interact with each other. So here, I put my email in the chat. Feel free to reach out. And we do formal internships with students at many universities. We also support volunteer opportunities. So yeah, feel free to reach out.
Okay, the next question, if the program is successful and the city does not go ahead with it, will there be an opportunity for the full ward to do it, even if the city's not on board? Oh, I think that maybe Maggie, could you cover that one?
Hi. Yeah, sure. And then I was also responding to Miriam's question about the resolution,
Oh, good.
the alderman, but I'm happy to address it here.
Go
So
ahead.
yeah, hi, I'm Maggie Walsh. I'm with the alderman's office. And Miriam, to address your question about the resolution. So the alderman actually did introduce the resolution, just introducing the pilot to his colleagues at July's full city council. And so from there, it was referred to the Committee on Environmental Protection. And that's kind of just it's just a formality. These types of resolutions do pass through. What he did this for was to get something official on the record at council so that his colleagues can be aware and they could reach out to him with any questions about how he's kind of scaled this as an office. So I hope that that answers your question about the resolution. And then the other question was about if the program's successful and the city does not want to go ahead with it. That would be something that we would have to discuss, how we would separate just the 43rd ward from the rest of the city of Chicago in terms of the abatement process. I'm not sure how that would look, but we'll just have to take that as it comes. I'm not sure if we'd be able to separate as a ward.
And then from Shelby Grisanti, how would someone get training for the pest management program Dr. Mayer mentioned? Would the training be available in Chicago?
As I understand it, have volunteers that if there were a pest manager who wanted to participate, they'd have to do so as a volunteer. But you can go on our website, and I'll put that in the group chat. And there is a button you can click for projects you'd like to do, or if you just want more information. So I'll put that in the chat right now.
Okay, so there's all those oh geez. Okay. Yeah, that should be chicagobirdalliance.org. I'm sorry. But there's a lot of emails up in the chat now. And I also just want to put in a plug. It costs $25 to become a member of the Chicago Bird Alliance, and you're not only supporting all this great work, but also you are just you're voting for birds and bird conservation in the city, and we can use all the votes that we can get. So I really encourage you, if you're not a member, to go on our website and become a member. Okay. I believe that's it.
Thanks so much, Judy, for leading this, and thanks everybody for coming.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you.
I thank you all. I wish I could be there in person when the first feeding box goes down with those cameras. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.